non-rhyme visual.
Historically, art has not existed for the sake of existing. Art has carried with it meaning and nuance and substance. It's like something pretty grabs your attention so that same thing can come right behind it and convey a message. That's art. If you have something that's just pretty, okay, maybe you've got a design, or you got something that sounds good, something that you can dance to, or whatever. That doesn't necessarily make it art. Art no longer carries any significance and is treated as a very trite, unimportant thing. But without that significance, without that substance, it's just something pretty to look at.
Human beings, we think symbolically. We don't realize it, but everything we think about, we think symbolically. Even the words that we think we're reading are nothing more than symbols of certain ideas and concepts. So we can read a word, and if we truly understand the definition of that word, then an entire concept will come to mind when reading that word. And I'm gonna give you this example before I pass the mic. Tupac, you always hear the debate, who's the greatest rapper? And then they would say Tupac was technically not a great rapper because they would say he was simple in the delivering and the way that he delivered his art form. But his delivery touched you emotionally. It had the ability to touch certain aspects of you and make you have an emotional response. If you came from a certain arena in life, if you came from that, you could hear it. Even though he wasn't lyrically complicated, his lyrics had the ability to express to a person what they was going through, what they was feeling themselves. And I believe that that's what art does. It's that expression that talks to the metaphorical and that emotional part of the brain. It makes an experience more emotional for a human being, in my opinion.
So to me, when we talk about defining art, it goes into the overall encompassing of everything that has to do with a specific craft that gives it a unique pattern or awareness that other people can also appreciate.
And let me add this as well. When we growing up in this society, whenever we think about somebody being intelligent, you'd automatically think of the IQ test. And certain people would boast if they had higher IQs. But there are different levels of intelligence. Like when I was studying psychology, I learned that there was shape intelligence, number intelligence, word intelligence, and sound intelligence. Those were the 4 different types of intelligence. And we usually grade intelligence in this society on word intelligence. But an artist, as far as a painter or a drawer, or even a builder from the perspective of an architect or something like that, they have what's called shape intelligence. Think of art from that perspective. You're dealing with curves and straight lines, and they have the ability to see those curves and straight lines in a way that somebody like me can't. And that's why they're able to take those curves and those straight lines and bring them together to create shapes, concepts, and ideas, expression on paper, canvas, or whatever, things that I can't see. A musician, they hear sounds that I can't hear. Like when you was out here in Texas and we did that Deeper Than Rap video, and you was expressing and breaking down what those sounds in the production meant. And it's like it turned the light on to us, because I couldn't hear all that, but you could, because you're a producer, you're a musician, you do music. So you was able to break down the story that the music was telling that I couldn't hear. All I heard was a nice beat until you express that. A mathematician has number intelligence. A philosopher has word intelligence. A artist, as far as one who paints and things, they have shape intelligence. And a musician has sound intelligence.
First of all, if you look at patterns, whether it's nature or any place else, the reality of it is a pattern is an approximation. Because even if you have repeating whatever it is, those repetitions are not going to be exactly the same. So what differentiates them is the particular expression that each of them has. And if there's art to be found there, it's in that differentiation in the expression. If it's about expression, it's about what it is I have to express, not something I'm saying so that you'll buy my record, but because I have a particular perspective on the patterns that are going on around me, and that expression being unique to me and expressing it. If the masses of the people have no clue about what's going on around them, how in the hell can they have a unique perspective about what's going on around them when they don't know what's going on around them? They're regurgitating what it is they've been told. They're plugging in certain beats at certain points in time so that the masses, the lowest common denominator, it will appeal to the lowest common denominator. It has nothing to do with art. So whether it's singing and that sort of thing, or it's visual arts, we've assigned or allowed the usage of the word to become bastardized and meaningless, like everything else. I've worked all my life to get to my expression artistically that I do. To have somebody come along and grab not even a paintbrush, a fucking blank canvas, and say, yeah, this is art. It's just like yours. No, it's not. It's not the same thing. And so there has to be a differentiation. In this society, we see the same thing happening. We've gone from order. We had definitions of manhood, definitions of womanhood, definitions of our roles in society and all of that, to a point where everything is disordered. There is no order because there is no definition. And when anything becomes disorganized, it dies. That's what death is. It's when a cell becomes disorganized and the nucleus is not doing this and the whatever, I forget all the little pieces, the RNA and the DNA and all the rest of the shit are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, that cell dies. And the same is true for any organization. If the organization doesn't have its definitions and its purpose and all of that, it dies. Art's the same way. If art does not have a purpose, and art does not have a purpose anymore in this society except to look pretty. That's all art is. And that's why, going back to the original, that we define art as anything that looks pretty or sounds good. I want to say something, here you go. And so understanding that we're moving to a state of less organization, art is moving toward or has moved toward a state of disorganization, to the point that if we look at what art used to be and what it ought to be, then we start to see art that's being used or existing for the sake of existing. It's like I'm talking just to hear myself talk. So like a little kid, when he learns how to talk, he wants to hear himself talk all the time. Nah. Not saying shit. He just wants to hear the sound of his voice. And that's where we're at. We're at this state of, moving along these lines of entropy coming apart, to the point that everybody just wants to be heard. Everybody just wants to hear their voice. Nothing to do with art, nothing to do with visions, nothing to do with anything of any significance. It's just everybody wants to be heard and seen. And that's the role that it plays now, and it has no value anymore. That song that you read off, I could have wrote that. Somebody else could have produced that. There's nothing unique about it. It's the same shit that somebody else has already said, really. Yeah, his words were a bit different cadence, different beat, whatever. But what was really unique about that expression? If this is a person who has a brain and is looking at the world, and we all want to be unique, what was unique about what it is he said or how he said it? Sounded good, sounded nice, but that doesn't make it art. And da-da-da-da-da. We've said it 1,000 times. What are you adding to it? What is your vision? What is your input to the zeitgeist, to the overall mindset and state of affairs that you're talking about?
But especially rap. Let me focus on rap. How rappers lose sight of what it is that of their true expression by following the formats that the record label puts down for them. They lose their ability to creatively express because they have to follow what's trending right now.
That's not my artistic expression. There may be elements of what I have to say in there, but as a whole, it's not an expression of what it is in my head, or how I feel, or the way I see my perspective on the world. It's an attempt to please somebody else, and art doesn't do that. Art reaches out to catch your attention, and then convey some type of depth, some type of substance, some type of unique perspective and understanding of the world around us, to provide a vision, to provide an interpretation of what we've gone through.
And I think, and I'm gonna throw this in there for y'all, I think that it's not an accident that those who seek to control the mass of the people, those who can seek to control the society, also want to control the economics and the art of that society, the media. By controlling media, you control basically artistic expression, because art has the ability. We go back to Chuck D. We go back to even artists who use their paintings to tell a story. We go back to people like Razzcast. Hell, we don't even have to go that far back with brothers like him, Razzcast or Dead Prez, who are using their art form to tell a story or to try to awaken people up. You know, you'll never have the money machine and the music industry totally behind these brothers the way that they would get behind a cookie cutter pop artist. You'll never have that, because you don't want that what these brothers are saying to actually infect the mass of the people.
It's one thing to make your shit and say, here, you like this? If you like it, give me a couple of bucks. That's one thing. It's another thing to say, oh, this is what's in style. Let me replicate that and make something that looks kind of like that, but it's a little bit different so that I can sell something off of it. That's two different things. That's all. The most important thing to any artist is their expression. Because you get that burning in your head, in your chest, and you've got to say or do or perform and act out whatever it is that's burning through you. You have to do it. You have to do it. In a cancel culture world, the most revolutionary act many times is artistic expression. Because if the world is telling you that you have to conform your voice to what it is we approve of, to sit back and to give your true voice to the world in the face of that cancel culture, in the face of those who are attempting to manipulate the voice of any artist or any people. And so art played a very important role beyond the superficial, what it looks like, what it sounds like. Yeah, it sounded good, but the reality of it is, in our cultures, it carried more than that. And that's a part of getting back to our culture. If you do shit just for the sake of doing it, you have a Agent Smith situation. You have what we have today, where everybody and their mama wants to, or a whole bunch of people want to say, I'm an artist. For us to get back to where we were, we have to add that purpose back. There was a level of accountability. There's no accountability in so-called art. Anybody can say anything. If it sells, it's cool. That's art. But for us, art had a responsibility to the people. It had a responsibility to that one being expressed, and that which was being expressed came out of that we mentality that is us. And we no longer have that we mentality. So if I have something to say as an individual, I get to say it. And it's kind of tantamount to me, to folks, a whole bunch of people saying I'm a revolutionary. Ain't put in a dime's worth of work, ain't studied shit, ain't did nothing, but you're a revolutionary. So you're basically putting yourself on par with Malcolm X, but you've done nothing in terms of studying what it is you're claiming to have. It's not doing anything. It's not expressing anything different. It's not adding to the conversation. Everything that comes and goes in our lives has meaning, has purpose, has intent. When we do that, then we hold ourselves responsible. That purpose holds us responsible. And so that's a big part of art. When you take that purpose, when you take that intent, when you take that self or that communal self accountability away, then you open the floodgates for Agent Smith, and you get what you got today. Everybody and their mama convoluting the idea, the whole concept of what art is and what art ain't. But they cannot fathom things as a whole. It's impossible for them to fathom things the way that we fathom. We understand that music and art and even science and all of these things carry so much more than what the five senses are telling us about it. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
I don't like to play music or show art that doesn't have a purpose. that doesn't have something greater than what it is, than your voice, than you saying some shit.
Okay, with saying that, let me ask this though, because okay, we think a certain way, but isn't everyone capable of expressing what art means to them? Isn't everyone capable of that? And that might be offensive to us, or we might not like it, but isn't everyone capable of having that same expression?
Yeah, I mean, everybody can. Doesn't mean they should. And we've talked about that before. I mean, on that conversation, I don't really, if you never thought about the movement and the liberation of our people, don't come and try to tell me what we need to do.
He was intelligent, understood science, all that, intelligent enough to basically beat you up with words, make you feel stupid, he was intelligent to rip you apart. No cursing, no insults, just tear you apart. And when he did it to the guy, I'm like, man, why you do the guy like that? Because he don't know what he's talking about. I said, you shouldn't, man, everybody has the right to their opinion. He said, no, brother, you know better than that. He said, we have a right to our opinion because we have done the studies. We have done the research. We went through the books. Our opinion is educated, so we have a right to giving our opinion. He didn't. He didn't have no right to an opinion because everything he's saying is just BS. And anytime they put themselves out there, I'm gonna slice them up. I'm going at them. I'm gonna punish them for thinking that they should stand in front of us and even speak. When they hear, they should just shut up and listen. It sounds arrogant. It sounds extremely arrogant, but he was right. Because he was right. Because when you walk around giving an opinion with no education behind it, you can miseducate and mislead people. So he was absolutely correct in that. And
I concur. And that's kind of my slant on art.
All right. To me, what made his art so profound, his art was portraying a message, and he was utilizing the expression of that art in order to awaken the people, awaken the masses to see things in a sense to where by expressing it in the simplistic art form he did, he was able to relay a political message in such a way to where even the most uneducated person could be able to see the mannerism in what was actually happening to him and be able to digest that information. So his art was being used to educate the masses, to drive the masses to a position of taking action, driving the masses to be able to come together and recognize and utilize their power. Now, one thing I do want to say on that same note, going back to the example he had about college, a lot of times what happens with people operating from an individual perspective like that, and I think that goes back to the unfortunate aspect to where having access to the tools of creative expression cause people to feel like they are on par with those folks that have lived their life through creative expression. And by saying that, what I'm getting at is that by being able to emulate those people that are great artists, emulate those people that know how to harness and utilize that craft for the sake of purpose and operate through purpose, folks feeling like because they can emulate something gives them the right or put them on par with those people that have actually lived it and actually ingested and embody that concept. And so unfortunately, these tools of having these expressive tools of design so readily available causes people to emulate art and emulate life as opposed to living life. It's one of the negative things about social media, to where people can create this virtual self, and through that virtual self they feel like they are able to express themselves to this as this full-bodied person that should be basically, like they say, influence, should be a great influence, so to speak. People chase influence. And one of the bad things about those tools, having them readily available, is that what happens, instead of people being students of self, students of science, and students of art, they become students of emulation. And by being a student of emulation, then all you're doing is mirroring the outward result of what something is, but don't have the essence or the purpose or the meaningful behind it. So therefore, they can't even take that same artwork, whether we talk about writing, speech, or video, or whatever, and be able to dissect it and see what it really means or what it's really saying. So the message that can be portrayed and relayed through a powerful art form cannot be relayed to somebody that only knows how to emulate, because they can only see what's at the surface.
A classic is something that speaks to certain themes and ideas that are universal in their application. Universal, geographically as well as temporally through time. There are certain ideas that withstand the test of time.
If you don't have an identity and you don't have a culture, you don't have an identity, and everything that you call yourself doing from the standpoint of revolutionary is not revolutionary. Now all we're going back to is what we stated earlier, and that's emulating. So because what's your purpose? If your purpose is not rooted in culture, then what's your reason for doing it? At that point, you're basically just an anarchist. You're not about revolutionary uprising or self-determination as a people. You're just about destroying something or coming out against something, but you don't have a purpose from that standpoint. So culture is by the utmost aspect of importance.